After nearly 3 years of bloody conflict, Syria is becoming a center for drug production. With most economic activity practically non-existent, coupled with the proliferation of armed groups, the business is ripening quickly. Let's take a quick look at that. According to a recent Reuters report, Syria has become a major drug exporter and consumer in the last few years. An outlawed stimulant called Captagon is now produced there in huge amounts. It's so profitable that the country has now replaced Lebanon as the main producer, which saw a 90% fall in production in the last 2 years. Lebanese officials also seized over 12 million pills of the drug last year, and the trend's also affecting other states. Turkish authorities see 7 million in pills which were en route to Saudi Arabia. Now, artist Maria Finoshina has been following the story for us.
With Syria about to enter in its fourth devastating year of war, the lack of law and structure has allowed one drug industry to flourish. The country has become the #1 producer of a drug known as Captagon. It's a synthetic stimulant, first manufactured in the 1960s, and it was at that time used as a medicine to treat hyperactivity and depression. But it's too addictive, and this is why it was banned in most countries. Though here in the Middle East, it's still very popular, it's cheap, and it's easy to get. But today, Syria not only produces more than any other country in the region, but it's also Captagon's main consumer. It's believed that fighters are taking these pills to maintain vigorous energy levels during lengthy battles, because it helps you keep awake for hours and hours. But there are also reports that ordinary citizens, those who've been living in depression and in this war and chaos for almost 3 years, now are also turning to the drug for the escapist euphoria it gives them. And it's lucrative. It's between $15 and $20 a pill, and there are hundreds of millions of them being taken or trafficked. And there is solid evidence that the revenue raised is buying weapons for both sides of the Syrian conflict. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime has been reporting that Syria, which is located at the crossroads here in the region, has for a long time been a transit point for the drug going from Europe, Turkey and Lebanon. But since the war began, Captagon's trade's gone domestic, and factories are appearing these days all across Syria, and production has increased and sales are booming. Here in Lebanon, the authorities seized around $200 million worth of tablets last year, mostly hidden in the tracks going through the Syrian-Lebanese border from Syria to the Lebanese ports, from where they are shipped to its final destination, including the Gulf countries, some of the most ardent supporters of the Syrian opposition, and Saudi Arabia, where around $1 billion worth of the drug was seized just last year, with authorities saying this is nothing but just 10% of the real turnover of the drug in the kingdom.
An editor of the Pan-African newswire, Abayomi Azikiwe, believes the drugs trade will only fuel the protracted Syrian conflict even more.
I think it should be investigated. We've seen the relationship between illicit drugs, very addictive substances, and imperialist war. As the rebels lose more and more ground, as the Syrian government and the Syrian military gains more territory, the degree to which they stabilize the country even further, the resources that are coming into Syria from the Western countries and from the countries that are allied with the West in the Middle East, this is going to, of course, make the rebels even more desperate and their supporters even more desperate to raise funds in order to finance them. So I think this is a reflection of the failure over the last 3 years of this U.S. and NATO-financed rebel war that's been leveled against the people of Syria. It's caused a tremendous amount of deaths, injuries, dislocation, and now, of course, drug distribution and addiction as well.